everyone, welcome again to my channel. Today I'm taking you with me not necessarily to a bookish event, but more to an event where Dungeons and Dragons was actually the theme. It's called Day of Dungeon and it's a 2-day event, so a weekend event, and it was very fun because not only do I play D&D myself, there was also a very fun project linked to it, but I'm gonna tell more about that later. But before we dive into the exciting world of Day of Dungeon, if you're new to my channel, hi, welcome to Quillscene. My name is Megan. If you like things that have to do with reading, with writing, with Wicca, with geeky stuff like Marvel, like Harry Potter, magic, all that sort of stuff, then you're in the right place. Make sure to click on the magical subscribe button and don't forget to hit that bell, because on that way you'll always get a notification whenever I upload a new video. But yeah, time to grab our dice, because we need a natural 20 to go to Day of Dungeons. So as some of you may know, if you followed my channel a little longer, you'll know I have this writing group called the Writers Collective, het Schrijverscollectief, which is basically a group of Dutch writers, well, Flemish writers mostly, in the fantasy genre, though that's like our core group, because we of course welcome anyone who has written their book, doesn't matter what genre it is or how they were published, but our core group that takes part in most events that we do with the Writers Collective are fantasy authors. And one of the fantasy authors is called Petra Doom, and her husband, in the beginning days of the Writers Collective, he joined the group to support his wife. Petra, as you know, supports the person who would look after the booth when she had to go to the bathroom, or who would fetch something to eat or to drink or something like that, who would help with, you know, taking all the stuff from the car to the car, stuff like that. But after a while, he pulled at my sleeve and asked, Megan, I have a question. I've been playing D&D for as long as I can remember, and I have created my own world within D&D, and now I'm writing my own like handbook one-shot adventures in my own world. Would it be possible for me to also, you know, join the Writers Collective as a writer who creates D&D content? And I, of course, was like, sure, you know, Jelmer, you were always part of the collective already, so yeah, we'll make sure you get a spot too where you can sell your books. And he also has, like, next to his handbooks, poster packets. So that basically are like the grids, like the maps of the different locations in the adventures, but on poster format, so that you can, you know, lay them out on the table if you play face-to-face with your players, the adventures that Jelmer wrote. For the moment he has 3 adventures, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, 3 adventures, and he's writing one that should come out around Halloween, and his first one is also translated to English. So if you're curious about it, for the Dutch people, look up Helden op Papier. I will link it down below also. For the English followers, look into Heroes on Paper, because as I said, his first adventure is also translated to English. And he had actually told us about Day of Dungeon. He had taken part on the editions of 2023 as Heroes on Paper. And back then he had already, like, hinted to the organization, like, I'm part of the Writers Collective who writes fantasy books. They wouldn't, they, you know, would love to be part of the market, part of Day of Dungeons too. So when the call came for vendors to, you know, show their interest to be a vendor at Day of Dungeon, Jelmer immediately said, go, 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 pitch the Writers Collective. So I filled in the online form. But the thing is, Day of Dungeon is hosted at the Ruiterijcomplex in Vilvoorde. At least this edition and the editions before were hosted there. And though it's a very beautiful location because it's basically old stables from way back ago, that were transformed into an event location, and they are like in a square form, and in the middle you even have a literal private square where you can host outside events. So it's a really beautiful location, but you are limited in place, well, in space. So they have always a limited amount of spaces that they can allow for vendors to take in, because of course the main focus is Dungeons and Dragons. So at the side of the vendors hall, there were all sorts of tables, well, at the sides, like lined, where there were live D&D sessions, and then there was also a hall where there was a workshop, miniature painting and stuff like that. But the vendors hall was basically one hall where they had like two U-shaped spaces where only a few vendors could, you know, sit. So when you sign up for Day of Dungeons, it's actually kind of like an interest poll, and then they will see, okay, these vendors would like to take part in our event. Who do we pick to make it a diverse market? So it was a bit of an will they, won't they choose us? But eventually I got a message that we were allowed to fill 2 tables with the Writers Collective. And then also Jelmer with Heroes on Paper had booked his own booth. And the fun thing was that, as I said, there were like U-shaped spaces for the vendors. So here were the booths, and then at the side were tables for against walls for live D&D sessions. So basically Jelmer was at the head of the U, to call it, like the well, when you see it as a U shape, it's like the below part. That was Jelmer's booth, and we were like here, sitting here. And because the other writers, well, we were limited in space, of course, because it could only sit like 4 people. That, yeah, 2 tables, each half a table, so 4 people in total that could tag along. So I went with my books. My mom went with our potions that we make as magical treasures. Also, Mathias Maho went along, and of course Petra Doom, because, you know, Jelmer was sitting like right there. So she tagged along. It was on the 23rd and 24th of March, and it was from, and now I have to take a little peek at my paper again. It was every day from 9:30 a.m. till 7 p.m. And as I said, it was in the Ruiterijcomplex in Vilvoorde. It is actually, again, I already mentioned, it's a very old building, but that used to be stables for horses and their carriages and everything. But now it was renovated for a beautiful event location. As I said, it's a beautiful backdrop for Day of Dungeons. I think it would also be a beautiful backdrop for like a wedding party or something. Even like photo location, perfect. And it's like in, yeah, a big park-like structure, because there's also a hotel and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really pretty. Yeah, as I said, we were in like one of the big rooms that were where there used to be stables, but like the separate stables were gone, so now you had one big room. And that was the vendors location, and also the live D&D sessions that were like in small groups. You also had a room where they did a workshop painting miniatures, as I already mentioned, but there were also like a live tattoo artist who did flash tattoos, also someone who would draw your character. your D&D character, of course. With the vendors, there were of course a lot of people who made their own dice, but also like people who made stickers, who made pins related to D&D. There were people who sold miniatures, who sold maps, who, well, dungeon tiles so that you could make your own maps, you know. People who also sold miniatures, but not only like the mini figs, but also like the structures, like castles and stuff like that. Was insane. Then there were also, of course, a lot of people like Jelmer who created their own D&D content, their D&D handbooks with like adventures, both one-shots as like big adventures, like the very thick handbooks, which was really cool to see. And then of course you also had our corner with the books and the potions, and also one of our colleagues, Eva Linde, was there with her books. And as I said in my intro, there was a little project that is actually related to Eva, because just like Jelmer, Eva had taken part in Day of Dungeons, the edition before, in 2023, because one of the book series she's writing is linked to the D&D campaign that she plays, where her brother-in-law is actually the game master, or the dungeon master as they're called in D&D. So she had the link with D&D through that, so she was welcome with her books at Day of Dungeons. And back then in 2023, she met a lot of people who were hinting like, oh my god, it's cool that you wrote in a D&D universe, you know, with D&D inspired stories and characters, because I myself played D&D for years, or whatever, how long they played, and my big dream is to write something with my characters, but I have no clue how to start with it, or even what I would do with a story. And that's how Eva actually got thinking, and she decided to start up a project, a story bundle with D&D as a theme, that she opened to both people with writing experience, but also people without writing experience. And she basically posted her call to action to see if people were interested shortly after the edition of 2023 took place. And along with a lot of other people, I reacted to it. And that's how I eventually ended up together with Eva and 6 others as a writing team to make a story bundle called Verhalen uit de Drakenvleugel, or Stories from the Dragon Wing. And it's basically each of us took one or multiple characters from a D&D campaign where we either were a player in it. In my case, I chose the character that I play with the D&D group that I form with my writers collective. But a lot of the people without writing experience were DMs, so dungeon masters. So they wrote the short story from one of the campaigns they played as DM, or well, they hosted as the DM. So yeah, that was really fun. And we decided to also not do a classic story bundle, but like with the previous story bundles that I already wrote with Writers Collective, we, I don't know how you call it in English, but in Dutch it's called een raamvertelling, translated literally window storytelling or window telling. Basically it is like, it's not story A starts, story A ends, story B begins immediately without like any link or something like that. That's a classic story bundle. For this one, we chose to like have a little break in between the short stories that were scenes on a neutral location where basically all the characters from the stories came together, so that it kind of feels like they are telling each other their story. As I said, I was one of the 8 authors. Also, Eva was one of the 8 authors, and then 6 others who never had written before. So that was very exciting to see, you know, how they developed along the way. And our end goal was Day of Dungeons 2024, because then we would present the book for the first time. So that's why Day of Dungeons became like an extra big day for me. Because as you will see later in the footage, we did our book presentation there. And we basically role played a bit as our characters. We did like a little quiz, which with yes and no answers, and we had like these wooden swords with the one side was green and the other side was red to, you know, yes or no, but we had to answer from our character and stuff like that. For the people who are watching and speak Dutch, yes, I will upload the entire book presentation, because I filmed the entire thing. But as I said, it's in Dutch, so but I will also insert a clip in the footage later. What else happened? Well, it was not only a big day for me, it was also a big day for Jelmer, because next to, of course, that he launched his first English translation of his first story, well, his first D&D handbook from the one-shot he wrote. He was also invited to take part in a panel that discussed the role of a dungeon master, so game leader of a Dungeons and Dragons game. But he also was invited on the big stage to play a live session together with other people that are very active in the D&D community here in Belgium and the Netherlands. And he played, and I loved his character. He played, now I have to take a look so that I don't mistake his name. He played Henry Red Rooster, who was a human fighter, if I'm not mistaken, who kind of had enough of his like noble life and stuff like that, and he became like a bit of a rogue kind of guy. And it was very fun because Jelmer had like this cap with, again, you will see it in the footage, with like a mohawk rat, the rat rooster, you know. Yeah, it was very funny. I, together with Mathias, who also makes vlogs, but then in Dutch, we managed to sneak away from our booth for a moment, so that we could, you know, film a snippet of his, moment as the rat rooster. So yeah, that was very fun. So yeah, I think it's time to watch some footage, because I think I babbled enough about this event. as you guys could see, Day of Dungeons was actually quite fun. It was very special that we were able to incorporate our book presentation of the story bundle into the program, because we were allowed to do our book presentation on both Saturday as Sunday. Next to that, it was also very fun to see Jelmer in his element, because when he is with us at a booth on a fantasy event or a bookish event, we see him, you know, as the writer, and well, the writer behind his D&D content. And also, of course, when it comes to D&D, we know him as our DM, because he's our dungeon master when in the game we play with, well, the D&D group we have with the Writers Collective. So it was very fun to see him, you know, change role from DM to player, because as DM you have a bit more control about the whole story, because you know what is hiding behind a door, you know where the traps are, while as a player you don't know anything, and you are very, you know, dependable on how your dices are, yeah, your dice rolls go. As a DM, a bit too, but you know, you have a bit more control, so it was very interesting to see that. But also, of course, we were also very proud when we saw him take part in the panel. So yeah, it was very, very fun. Of course, I bought a few things because I couldn't resist. The first thing I'm actually wearing, I'm going to stand up so you guys can see. It is this t-shirt of a cat, and it says Dungeon Meowster. I wanted to make a dragon already out of it. It was actually one of the t-shirts Eva had with her, because she has like a few bookish, geeky related items that she also has in her web shop. So I bought this one. But then of course the biggest purchase, not really, because I already had, you know, sent the money beforehand, but it was because we all authors that worked at the bundle, because they were all present at Day of Dungeons, Eva had decided to bring the books we had ordered to sell ourselves to the event, and that's so that she didn't have to, you know, send them with the post and stuff like that. So of course we got not only our own author book, but also the books that we had ordered to sell ourselves of Verhalen uit de Drakenvleugel, or well, stories from the Dragon Wing. For the people who are interested, the Dragon Wing is actually the name of the taverna that is part of the book. So basically it is 8 adventurers meet at well, it's not like they knew each other beforehand, but 8 adventurers wander into the taverna called the Dragon Wing. And yeah, the meat is being served generously. So they start, like, you know, swapping stories from, you know what I went through last week. Oh no, that's nothing. You know what and you know, like, to one up another, stuff like that. Strong stories, straffe verhalen, or strong stories, literally translated, we call them in Dutch. And that's how basically every adventurer tells their story. And my story is called Het Raadsel van de Sphinx, or The Riddle of the Sphinx. And it's about a young Amazon named Leo. She also has godly blood, but she tries to hide that fact because she's not a fan of her mother's side. It's complicated. But anyway, the head of her Amazon tribe has visions granted by the moon goddess. And that's how they actually decide on missions and who to send to those missions. And basically the leader of her tribe tells her to go to the desert to retrieve an long lost relic called the Moon Amulet. Leo knows that it is hidden somewhere in a ruin of a temple where it is also guarded by a sphinx. She also knows that she isn't the first Amazon to get this mission, because her predecessor sadly hasn't returned alive. But what else is hiding in the sand? Yeah, that's something I'm not going to tell you, of course, because you have to read the story for that. But as I said, 8 stories among my own. And every book also comes with a fun little bookmark. And also a postcard. I have to see that like this. A fun little postcard that is basically the map of the world that all the stories and of course the Taverna and everything are fit on the map. It was a lot of puzzling to get, you know, a bit of sense. Like, okay, you have a desert, okay, we have to split that in 3 different types of deserts in one desert. It was a lot of puzzling, as I said. But yeah, that was the biggest purchase I of course did. Because these books were of course packed up in a big box. And we had agreed that at the event itself we wouldn't sell our books. That Eva would present the books at her booth, and so she would be the only seller of the bundle, so to not confuse customers. So when I came home and opened up my box of books, I realized she had also hidden a little gift for every author, because she also had made mugs of stories from the Dragon Wing, and with a little dragon on it. Look how cute! You probably have seen this mug in my backdrop 1,000 times already, because it's been in my backdrop for a while now. Because as I said, I'm filming these voiceovers months after the events. So yeah. But yeah, that was everything I got at the Day of Dungeons 2024. By now I also know that there is an edition in 2025. They are switching locations, however, because it's not anymore in Vilvoorde, but now they are going to somewhere in Ghent, which has more room for vendors, but still, again, limited space. It's a little bit bigger than the Ruiterij complex, but still, you know, limited space. So they did again a call of action to see who is interested to be a vendor. And I again signed us up as a writers collective. So hopefully we will be chosen again, so that we can take part on a newer location. Also in 2025 it will be only 1 day, so it is again Day of Dungeons and not Days of Dungeons, because this edition was 2 days. But as I said, I really hope we can go back in 2025, because it's a really fun event. The vibe is very, very cool. And yeah, it's just fun, you know, to be surrounded by dice that gets rolled and re-rolled, and that's basically the only sound you hear, like the rolling of dice, which is very, very cool. But yeah, that was it for this vlog. If you like this, please leave a thumbs up or a little comment down below. I love your feedback, and it also helps my channel grow. And all that's left to say then is thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I see you guys soon for another bookish, magically, probably on the go video. Bye!